Well, you may see the lighting is a little bit dark on my end today, but there was certainly not a lot of darkness throughout this round of 32 and round of 16. A lot of stars shone, I don't think is a word, shined brightly,
I mean, yeah, I
made
mean,
themselves.
I go with
It,
that.
it, it could be. I don't know, but a lot of stars shine brightly as we continue along in the knockout phase of the 2026 FIFA World Cup and get you another edition of the NSMA podcast covering the tournament. Welcome to everyone watching or listening around the world. Spencer Thompson, Drew Williamson. We got a couple of guests that are coming in throughout the day. But before we get into this myriad of matches that we got to recap over the last couple of days, Drew, I have to ask, how was your vacation?
I can't lie, it was, very relaxing. It was a peaceful time to, get away from everything. I obviously was still very invested in watching the World Cup. Me and you texted back and forth almost every match, so that part of me didn't change, but it was good to, get a few days to relax, but back to business as usual.
How about the week that you had, not just with vacationing on the beach for Independence Day for America's 250th birthday, but also the National Sports Media Association convention? We had a fun time out there talking with colleagues who had a lot of questions about the podcast and the World Cup. And I love, and I told this story to some of the other folks around the World Cup and the matches that I went to, that the after party, I think, not just because we were all indulging, maybe some more than others, but we were watching the shootout for one of these games, which we're going to
Mm.
recap it. But we were watching some of the penalty shootouts of the final games that were going down. Like I had on my phone the uh, Germany match, which I know we recapped it in the last episode, but we were watching some of the games, and at one point during Netherlands, Morocco. I can't remember if I brought this up on the last show, but it was still cool of like all of us who were around the bar just watching the penalty shootout, even a bunch of people who didn't know
Yeah.
that much about the game. And even you look over at the sportscaster of the year, Sean McDonough. I'm like, hey, Sean, have you called soccer before? He goes, not very well. So, and I even asked him, like, any encouragements I should give to John Strong or say anything when I see him? He's like, I don't know if I could even say anything that would make a difference with him. So,
The funniest thing is the guy we were sitting behind Sean, and while the PKs were going on, we were like, "I wish Sean could give us, like, a play-by-play, like, live of, like, the penalty shootout." That would've been fun, but no, that was a great event, a great couple of days. Very impressed with the National Sports Media Association for putting on an event like that, and definitely something I'll return to. It was my first time and definitely won't be my last.
the last thing I'll say about it, the one call that Sean would have perfectly that would work with soccer if it's going on a PK, ball is out, ball is out.
Ball is out, and then voice crack in there too a little bit.
He fully embraces it, though. He
He
talks
does, he
talks about
does.
how he fully embraces the voice cracks on that regard, and we'll get into how John Strong had a couple of voice breaks throughout the round of 32. Justifiably so, by the way. It was nothing that was unwarranted on those moments. So, all right, let's get into it. Belgium, Senegal. Wow. What a
Thriller.
treat that the people had in Seattle for its round of 32 matchup. Look, we've been talking throughout this entire tournament about how Senegal has been a really competitive team. They have been, just gritty and trying to fight till the very end on their respective matches. And it's unfortunate that their journey ended here in the round of 32, especially because of that shutout win they had against Iraq to put no doubt in anyone else's mind that they could get in to that third place spot in the round of 32, especially because of the tough group they had with France and Norway. But it's not anything that look, I think this is more a match of Senegal's to lose, especially because they're up 2-0 at the start of the second half. But this is once again, when Lukaku comes into the game, he makes an impact. Now, it took him a lot longer than he usually does because he was substituted at halftime and didn't score until the 86th minute to try and put some momentum there. And then suddenly a second goal by Yuri Tielemans, and then it had to go to extra time for it to be able to find a victory. And of course, it comes down to a penalty kick when it was already destined to go to penalty shootout, which uh, especially with it being 50-50, I don't know who would have taken it in the penalty shootout, but of course there has to be a VAR involvement. Of course there has to be a penalty kick to end this matchup, but very even by both. Fun fact for you on this, Drew. Uh, both teams, 19 attempts on goal, both of them 5 on target. Like dead even on the shot metric. Corners pretty close too. Belgium 4-2. Belgium had 52% ball possession. So this was very much what you would ask for, not just in a round of 32 match, but in terms of teams even next to each other, neck and neck on this, even though for a while it looked like Senegal was going to comfortably send Belgium back across the Atlantic.
Yeah, I think honestly, the biggest difference in this game was experience. Senegal, we knew they were a dangerous team. They were put in that group of death with France and Norway, and they played that Norway game very, very competitive. And they even were there with France for the first half of that game. I mean, remember the score was 0-0 at halftime in their game against France. So we knew how dangerous this Senegal team was. And we also knew how Belgium's golden age was kind of fading away, and we saw that in their group stage play. That being said, when you have guys on the pitch that have been there before and have been in the moment before, like Kevin De Bruyne and Romelu Lukaku, you are always going to have a fighting chance. And I think Belgium just never gave up that no quit mentality. Senegal being up 2-0 with 85 minutes played is almost unfathomable how you lose that game. And then for Belgium to get 2 back-to-back goals and send it into extra time where a very, a controversial, a lot of people would say penalty was given there at the very tail end of extra time. But ultimately, you were hit it on the nail, Senegal's game to lose. And very unfortunate. It was very unfortunate. I think that Belgium was the more experienced team, and that's why they won. But this game could have gone either way. I will say, though, as a USA fan, I am glad Belgium won. To keep it
Yeah.
honest with you, I did not want to face that Senegal team. So
No.
yeah, ultimately that's how I interpreted that.
No, yeah. It's especially with how comfortable Senegal was looking throughout the majority of the game. It's very much one of those you're glad that Belgium was able to advance through. And I agree, especially with the comment you made about how Belgium had experienced players that had been on this stage before several times, some a little more than others, especially Romelu Lukaku. Now, and we talked about how in the USA-Belgium matchup, he was in the starting rotation for Team Belgium in 2014 for them to go to that quarterfinal. And it's, yeah, it one of those classic matchups. Several of the matches here in the round of 32 went to extra time, and again, to quote John Strong about the round of 32 being carnage, it very much delivered, not just in this matchup, but Senegal. Great, I would say great run in the tournament, but you also had 2 losses in group play,
Yeah.
and you had to blow out Iraq to be and hope that other third place teams were not as good. Which, granted, if it was a closer game against Iraq, probably would have seen them on the outside looking in just because of goal differential. But they did what they had to do to get to the elimination phase. But for Senegal, I'm not going to say congrats on the run you've had because it was really just technically a 1-3 record overall in the tournament. So it's tough for them. But I mean, kudos to Belgium. They decided, you know what? Let's send you home. Let's go ahead and not go quietly into the night, and let's try to get a chance to stay in Seattle for their upcoming matchup against Team USA, which we'll get into that one a little bit later. Okay. Next one that we have here. We'll go to some of the ones that I was not able to attend. Yeah, let's go with this a little bit of a barn burner to start out early with, but still an intriguing matchup. Portugal, Croatia. Remind me, Drew, were we dead wrong on this? I think I did say 2-1 for Portugal. I can't remember if we were on the same page for it. Do you remember?
Okay, I remember. I definitely picked Portugal to win. I think. I know I don't know what scoreline I had, but I know I definitely picked Portugal to win. I don't know why I thought you said Croatia, but I could
Yeah.
be dead
No,
wrong.
okay, I did say Portugal but what I got wrong was that I said Cristiano Ronaldo would score the game-winning goal,
You did. Okay, now I
which he
remember.
did not.
Yes.
He found the equalizer on a penalty kick. But regardless, I do like Ronaldo's comments at the end of him being complimentary of Luka Modric and talking about how it was going to be the last time probably him playing and how he loved his career and all that kind of stuff. And it also helps when Ronaldo is in a good mood when he's in a win, obviously, to make those kind of comments and such. But Ivan Perisic opened things up in the 53rd minute, so one of those kind of tale of two halves. You had one yellow card for Ruben Diaz in the 17th minute, and then had an interesting substitution for Croatia at halftime, which normally those sort of things don't happen too often. But Portugal managed to find the back of the net, make it a 2-1 victory. Those aspects, but I will say. Portugal, they for the most part they dominated this game. I mean, pretty close on attempts on goal overall. 61% possession of the ball for Portugal. Outdoing Croatia 9-5 on corners. Croatia surprisingly had more shots on target, 6-3, against Portugal. But it's interesting. I'm not quite sold on this Portugal national team yet. I think that they're, especially with the opponent that they're facing here in the round of 32, there's a lot of challenges coming up with that. But, I mean, I think it's still a good win for Portugal. You hate it for Croatia, but as we've been saying all along throughout this show, Croatia's not the same team that they've been in the last several editions of the FIFA Men's World Cup, and that really played out here. I don't want to say it was necessarily experience in the World Cup because there were several guys on this Croatia team that have been there before. And Ronaldo managed to land in the penalty kick, which, to be honest, though, if he didn't, especially with Messi missing a penalty kick in the group stage and several times where there have been easy to make penalty shots that have not been put in the back of the net, this game would probably go to extra time, or Croatia would completely change the narrative of the game. So I think it's good for Portugal. I mean, it gives Ronaldo a chance to fight another day, but heartbreaking for Croatia.
Yeah, absolutely. First of all, the mutual respect between Cristiano Ronaldo and Luka Modric, teammates at Real Madrid. They so much respect for each other, and unbelievable career that Luka Modric has had with Croatia and, in his club leagues as well. I think he's just a terrific player, and he leaves a legacy behind at Croatia that probably will never be matched in Croatian history. So a lot of respect to them, and it is unfortunate for Croatia. I do think Portugal kind of played at their pace. They typically like to outpossess you. They dominate possession, but I still feel like in the final third they struggled to create good chances. I think that they were getting the shots up, but I don't think they were quality looks. I do like that they started Leao on that left side. I think he brings a lot more dynamic, pace to this Portugal team that I feel like sometimes they lack with Ronaldo up top. Ronaldo, obviously is up there in age, not quite, breaking defenders down with his pace anymore. It's kind of just his placement of scoring goals. And yeah, Croatia was able to start hot. Perisic, right place, right time. It was a good cross and a really, really good finish. And then Portugal getting that penalty was huge because I thought that just for a second there that it was going to be over. And Ronaldo knocking in that penalty, getting his first World Cup knockout goal of his
Yeah.
career was pretty legendary. And obviously it was a great moment for him and great moment for Portugal because that was what they needed, and stoppage time was absolutely insane. First of all, Gonzalo Ramos getting the winning goal for Portugal, but then also Croatia ended up scoring, but it got called back due to
Yeah.
what a lot of people say is a very controversial offsides call. So I think it was offside. I do think it hit the Croatian defender. A lot of people see it, a different way, but I do think it was offside. But yeah, just a heartbreaking loss for Croatia, and it sets up a really interesting matchup with Portugal as they take on Spain in the round of 16.
Yeah, as you mentioned, very controversial, which funny enough to think about all the matches recapping the last several days, that's not the most controversial thing that's occurred last times. But one last fact for you on that, Cristiano Ronaldo becomes the oldest goal scorer in the FIFA World Cup knockout stage history at 41 years and 147 days. Roger Mila remains the oldest player to score at a FIFA World Cup when he was 42 years and 39 days. So add that to the many accolades that Ronaldo has had at this point. But again, congratulations to Portugal. I mean, you hate it for Croatia, but again, this is not the same team that we've seen in the last couple of years. And we'll get into the preview of Portugal and Spain later on. We got some other round of 32 matches to recap, but since we already went over the Paraguay and Netherlands matchup in the last episode, we want to make sure we're respectful of one of our guests' time, who's joining us on here all the way from France on the digital airwaves. Is Thibault joining us for one of the more surprising round of 16 matchups that we've seen so far. France narrowly somehow escapes against Paraguay with a score of 1-0, and the only reason they escaped to that score line and didn't go to extra time was Kylian Mbappe knocking one in the back of the net off of another penalty kick, as we were just talking about with Portugal. So, Thibault, always good to have you with us, and the streak continues wherever you're joining us. It is to talk about a France win. About 68,324 people attended this match in Philadelphia between France and Paraguay. And this was France's match to lose when you are out shooting your opponent 15-5 on attempts on goal, 5-1 on target. This France team also had 12 corners to Paraguay's 2 and had 76% of possession on the ball. For the life of me, I don't know why France didn't blow out this Paraguay team. I really don't. So help me understand through the madness here, Thibault.
Hello, everybody. Hello, nice to be with you again. Why did France didn't score as much as they have accustomed? Honestly, it was as you saw, it was a tough match. Like Paraguay players are very very low block, defensive block. Everybody was in the 30 meters area. So you have once more, France had to attack against a low block. But it was more difficult because Paraguay, they showed it against Germany in the previous round, in the round of 32. And this time they did it like maybe worse, but like they tried to they provoked a lot and to destabilize the French players. Sometimes they succeed in this mission, you can say, like Galarza, Cáceres, Velasquez. They had this mission like to provoke the French players, especially Mbappé, Olise. Also Didier Deschamps, as he confessed after, they insulted him and his dead mother. So yes, the Paraguay was here they were here to destabilize France, and France during an entire hour they couldn't. How do you say, they couldn't fight, they couldn't respond or find the solution. And it was at the hour of the game that Didier Deschamps reacted and adjusted his system, his tactics. He substituted Bradley Barcola with Désiré Doué. And this player, this winger, he plays for PSG also. This player he is better like to dribble, to take the ball in the small spaces and to go into the area, the surface, and to provoke with the ball. This time with the ball, not only with word or pushes. And only 4 minutes after he entered the pitch, he obtained the penalty kick. So it was a good coaching at this time. And as you saw, Mbappé converted the penalty, but before Dembélé surely was important in another compartment of the game, another moment. Like as you saw, he took the ball and he protected the point, the penalty point. like and protected, like Mbappe concentration, focus, all about that. So it was again a more collective response, but more in a mindset.
Yeah, Paraguay came into this game, in my opinion, and just said, we're not able to beat France straight up. So we're going to play a very, very defensive strategy, park the bus. But I think you hit it on the nail, Thibault. Like they were trying to get underneath this French national team's skin, specifically Mbappe, Dembele, Olise, like all these guys. Paraguay was very physical with them, and they were, like I said, trying to get them thrown off and rattled off their game. And it honestly worked for a good majority of that game. I think that obviously France dominated in possession and they had a lot more shots, created a lot more chances. And I think the combination of Mbappe, Dembele, Olise, and Barcola is genuinely unstoppable. And those four together up top could beat any defense. And the fact that this Paraguay team only allowed one goal is pretty impressive. I do, although, think that they played a very interesting game, like a bit of a choppy game. I don't think that they played clean, to be honest, that much. But this France team, it's all about survive and advance in this World Cup, and I don't think there was ever a fear in France that they were going to lose this match. It was just finding that goal and kind of building off it. And Mbappe continues his Golden Boot race. He's now tied with Messi and Haaland for 7 goals. So, yeah, this France team I still think is the most dominant team in the tournament. Although they did win this game narrowly, I do think they're still France.
I still got to hammer this point home, fellas. 12 corner kicks for France to Paraguay's 2. And you only score on a penalty kick because of a clip in the box. Like, this is, now Paraguay, absolutely, they got outshot. They got outmanned. They got outpossessed. They only possessed the ball 24% of the time. 5 attempts on goal, 1 on target. So, and we've been saying this throughout the entire show of that if you don't get in the double-digit metric on attempts on goal, 90% of the time you are going to lose the match. And that's what happened. And I don't know how this game would have gone down if not only if Mbappe somehow misses that penalty kick, or even if that doesn't happen. I wonder how fatigue settles in extra time, especially because can we also add, I know that actually, you know what? I've got a slight explanation for it as well that none of you guys have mentioned of why France was only able to score 1 goal. This was the hottest game in the World Cup, temperature-wise. Like, it was, people were dripping in sweat. Like, it was just horrible on the conditions. Now, granted, Miami has been a lot worse, and we'll get into it with Argentina and Cabo Verde, but this was one of the hottest matches between Paraguay and France, like heat warning levels. Like, I know that we in the United States go by Fahrenheit, but over in Celsius, you're looking at about like 45 C, Thibault, like 45 C plus. Like, that's how bad it is. And in Fahrenheit, almost 100 degrees. Now, granted, Philadelphia doesn't have that much humidity because it's more in the Northeast, but it was bad. And you could see that play out, but France was still getting shots on target. They were still creating corner kick opportunities and getting things going. So, like, they were trying to do something, but I think if this game gets to extra time, not Mbappe necessarily, but somebody collapses. I hate to say that because the number one thing should be player safety, and it was very much hydration breaks were needed in this competition, and one of the reasons why FIFA implemented it. But I think that was a huge X factor in this that a lot of people aren't talking about is you have cooler conditions on this. Say you were even in Mexico City tonight where it was 58 degrees. Yes, it was 80% humidity, but it was in the Fahrenheit, it was about 56 degrees. So around like maybe 20 C. I think my math is not the best on this. I don't have a Fahrenheit Celsius calculator in my head, but I think, or even if you have this in an indoor stadium, it's a different story. But at the end of the day, I mean, Drew, you said it best of that there wasn't really a doubt that France was going to win this game. It's just a matter of how. And Thibault, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Mm-hmm. I have my concerns now about Team France because yes, we could talk about the temperature. Yes, we could talk about how Paraguay, there were a couple of times where they were very dirty in their play and they're doing a lot of silly stuff, including at the end where there was the penalty kick and just like kind of holding on to the ball. But I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel concerned about this France team now and that they've shown a little bit of weakness because especially for a Paraguay team that barely escaped against Germany in the round of 32 in penalty kicks, I don't know if I'm thoroughly convinced now that I know there's still the sentiment of that France may be the favorite to win this whole thing, but especially with the sort of the momentum Morocco has and how one-sided of a game they had against Canada, I'm concerned about France going further in the knockout stage.
No, maybe I'm not so concerned because another reason why France didn't score as much, it was because of the Paraguayan goalkeeper Orlando Gil. He was decisive against Germany and once more against France. In the second half, he made at least 4 decisive saves. An incredible double at the end, but it was the game was already done, but it was almost done. But there were 2 incredible saves. But yes, this goalkeeper was really good. He made only 1 mistake on the penalty. He chose the wrong side, but that's it. So maybe it was also because of this goalkeeper. And in the next round, in the quarterfinals, France will face another excellent goalkeeper, Yassine Bounou, the Moroccan goalkeeper. So yes, we'll see. Maybe France can find another solution, like to put more danger on the cage. Yeah.
I don't know, Drew. Am I just overreacting, or do you think that there's some concerns about France going forward?
To be honest with you, I don't think you're overreacting, but I am not worried. I don't think that I'm not worried. I'm not worried about France. I don't think that this game it should be, you know, a little bit of a hey, like we should have played better than that, but at the same time, like I watched that game and I knew France was the much better team, and the way that the game style kind of was didn't really. It was really an ugly game, if you want me to be honest with you, with the amount of chippiness there was and things like that. So I'm not too worried about this France team. I still believe they're the most talented team in the World Cup, and I think they'll look to play better against Morocco.
Yeah. Final thought on this. Do you think the temperature had a huge factor in it?
Of course, of course. I think that that's a no-brainer. I think that always games like that you want that's I guess why they put the hydration breaks in place, but it definitely had a factor, I'm sure. I mean, you add heat to already a very physical game. I mean, that wears on players. So, yeah, absolutely was a factor.
And maybe
It
another
doesn't.
factor,
Yeah.
maybe just to mention last factor, it was the refereeing, because we have to mention it. As you said,
Yeah.
the third team on the pitch, as you said, Spencer. But this time it was tough for France. Honestly, like France goes out of the game with 3 yellow cards, no one for Paraguay.
Yeah.
It was very violent game from them, and even the penalty, the VAR had to call him to check the images. So yes, it was a bad refereeing on this game, like honestly.
Yeah,
It
I mean, I
was.
was going to say,
It was.
because you had 3 yellow cards that were given to France on this. You had at full time, like Carlos Gonzalez for Paraguay got a yellow card basically at the end of the game, which I guess that kind of carries over in international play, but he probably doesn't care on that. But that was why I wondered why, like, I guess we were talking about how Barcola has been great for France, but, you know, you got that card in the 19th minute, and then he was substituted off in the second half kind of early on, to be honest with you. And then Dembele also subbed off. He didn't get booked, but, you know, that's where it's part of me wonders about and Elise in extra time getting the yellow card too. But that's where I say I was slightly concerned, because I know we talked about how Barcola and Dembele and Elise and Mbappe have all been great, but the fact that there's only a penalty kick in this game, that's where I kind of got concerned, especially because what I saw them do against Sweden, like another team that, in my opinion, is better or was better than this Paraguay team heading into the tournament and getting into the knockout stage. But it's at the end of the day, nobody cares, right? A win is a win, like especially for moving on to the moving on from the round of 16 to get into the quarterfinals, and it doesn't get easier from there. But yeah, I agree with you. I think I'm shocked that there were as many minimal yellow cards in this game. You agree, Drew?
For sure. Yeah, I agree with both of y'all. I think that the refereeing this game was poor. And I believe that there should have been more kind of thrown towards Paraguay's way. But yeah, I agree. I think that there was a clear edge to this game that it didn't feel like. I said, it was a weird game, to be honest. It wasn't a typical. The fact that France, how do I word this? Surviving was the only thing that France needed to worry about this game. It wasn't a clean game at all, but like you said, in this World Cup, it's survive and advance, and I'm not worried about France.
But I will say, this is the one time I know earlier I was getting a little bit on the horse about, you have to be careful about whether you say good run for certain teams or such. I think Paraguay, especially considering how bad of a loss it was to the United States to start out this World Cup run, for them to, win against Turkey in a close match and then to tie with Australia to get to the round of 32. And I mean, all things considered, for them to knock out Germany in the way they did and to force them to penalty shootout, I mean, just incredible stuff from Paraguay. I think there's still disappointment on their end, but the fact that they were still able to make it to this point, and I don't know any colleagues from Paraguay at this point, although I'd love to meet some down the line. I hope that there's at least a little bit more sense of pride with Paraguay, especially after their national media was just furious about the way they came out against the United States. And I mentioned it before, the fact that yes, garbage time. Yes, the game was out of hand at that point. But the fact that Paraguay was able to get at least one goal against the United States, that pretty much bumped them into the round of 32 as one of the better third-place teams, including the win against Turkey and the tie against, Australia. So that at least, helped them on that regard. But France will take it. They'll advance to face off against Morocco in the quarterfinal round here, continuing on the FIFA World Cup. T-Ball, always good to have you join us. I know I'm going to make a prediction on this game later on, but I promise I'm still rooting for you and for our colleague Magda equally. I make a prediction on this side, which will come on later in the show, but I'm still rooting for you both equally. But hopefully we'll get to what was that?
So penalty shootouts.
You read my mind. You read my mind. I was thinking about going on to that aspect because, hey, it would be the same thing as in Chile. We'd get the same thing where it was a penalty shootout to decide who would go to the next phase of the elimination side of things. But we'll see how it goes. Maybe we have you and Magda on the show at the same time so you can both talk about. Let's just have them argue for the entire podcast episode. We'll just have them argue about what went wrong in the show. So, but T-Ball, always good to see you. We'll catch up on the next match from France.
Thank you. See you.
All right, continuing along in the round of 32 recaps, we go to this matchup that happened in Vancouver with the winners of the respective Group B, Switzerland, where just domination against Algeria. I mean, we're going to talk about the Spain-Austria match in a little bit since I was on site for that one in Los Angeles. But Switzerland showed that they were not the team that tied at the start with Qatar. Like, they're not the team that narrowly won against Canada 2-1 to win the group, although that was still one of the better matchups on the final days of group play. But Algeria showed very much that they were a team that had to tie just to get into the round of 32. And I think Switzerland, it's not that I'm like lacking a convincing metric. I think they're a solid team. I think Granit Xhaka really needs to start showing up a lot more than he has throughout this World Cup. I mean the fact that he has gotten one goal against Bosnia, and that was in stoppage time, 90 plus 7 minutes, and he's gotten involved in some passes, but he hasn't done a whole lot. I think there's more to expect from Team Switzerland's captain at this point, but I tell you again, a win is a win is a win. Don't get me wrong, but I felt like this should have been a one more sided victory for Switzerland.
Yeah, I agree. I think that they got a pretty favorable matchup with facing off against Algeria. No shade to Algeria. They did well in this World Cup, and they put themselves in a good position to make it to the round of 32 and perhaps win a game or two. And I think that their game against Austria in the final group stage match was great, but this was more about Switzerland. And I think ever since that draw with Qatar, I think that really did wake them up a little bit and, finally give them a sense of like, we have talent on this team and we need to show that. And I think they have. And Bolo's been incredible for this Swiss team up top. He scored the opening one in the first 10 minutes of this one. And then Granit Xhaka, I am looking for a little bit more out of you, especially if they're going to have any chance of advancing against Colombia. I think that he's going to need to play a lot better, but overall a good win for the Swiss, and I don't think that there was too much concern with anybody that Algeria would, get this win or scare them a little bit, but yeah, definitely impressive by the Swiss, and I am looking forward to their match with Colombia.
Yeah, Algeria, surprisingly, they possess the ball 56% of the time. I don't really want to say that's a dominant side of things. It's more when we get into the 60-40, that's where it's a major thing. But when you're in between that 59 to 51% range, I think it's fair to say it's a little more even on that. But still, Algeria had the ball more of the time. They didn't really capitalize on it. 8 shots on goal, 2 on target. The Swiss had 11 attempts, 5 on target. So not a whole lot of shooting combined between the two. 4-2 on corners in favor of the Swiss. So one of those that there wasn't a whole lot of offensive production that was generated, but still able to get the win and get some things going. And, for the Swiss, they get to stay in Vancouver as well. It's a benefit for them to have cooler weather, as we'll talk about in several of these other games that we're recapping. But, I think, like we were mentioning, we think Shaka needs to do a little bit more. Surprisingly, Mbolo has shown up a lot in this tournament now. I think that's now his third, or no, that's his second goal here in the World Cup. And this is now, let's see, this is his first regular goal. He had a penalty kick for their first goal to score against Qatar. But, it's... and then Dan Ndoye, I think, that is his first goal of this World Cup as well. But we'll see how the Swiss team goes. I mean, I don't know if I think they're going to make a deep run, especially because of the opponent they face on the other side here in Vancouver. But, I still think that it's just, I guess, I don't know if it's fair to say that it's a warm-up game in a way, especially because it's an elimination phase stuff, but it very much felt like a warm-up game. There wasn't really any challenge, especially because their opening goal was in the first 10 minutes. I don't feel like there was really that much of a challenge that was put up by Algeria in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree. I think that they knew, the Swiss knew what they had to do and what they needed to get done. I don't think this was a very competitive game in terms of chances. I know Algeria dominated in possession, but I think this was pretty clear result. I don't think that they were worried about anything other than winning this game and moving on. And now they have a much tougher opponent in the round of 16.
They at least have the benefit of being in the same arena they played in. And again, it's the Northwest, so it's a lot colder. I know that because I'm here in the Northwest right now in Seattle, and it was a great, like around 58 degrees Fahrenheit, my friend, and the sun shining down and everything around Seattle. It was great. Normally I don't wear shorts for media stuff, but I was able to wear shorts today for Team USA's practice anyways. But not to get too derailed, but congratulations to Switzerland. it doesn't get easier. You got Colombia next in the quarterfinal, and we'll get to previewing that later. All right, we're going to bounce around again, going over to this round of 16 matchup. You know, I was going to save the best for last on this, but now I say best for last in terms of the match itself and how drama it was on the edge of our seats. But as great as it is to always see our colleague and friend ETN, it was not a great result for Team Mexico. But it was this is, and we haven't even recapped Argentina and Cabo Verde. That was the match of the tournament heading into this one. But now this England-Mexico match is the match of the tournament. England gets the win 3-2 in one of the roughest environments to win in international football. And Jude Bellingham scoring 2 of the goals. Harry Kane managing to get a PK in the second half to have him up by a 3-1 score at that point. Julian Quinones scoring at the end of the first half to at least cut the deficit in half. And then Raul Jimenez with a penalty kick to try and keep it close. And then chance after chance, fighting after fighting, Mexico was trying to piggyback off of their amazing crowd in at Mexico City Stadium, which, interesting enough, on the match report, they do not have a attendance number, which that's the first time I have never seen that on a full-time match report, but that stadium was full. You could see it on all the cameras and everything. It was full. There were blips of England fans that were in there, but it was a lot of correct me if I'm wrong because of my colorblind eyes, a lot of green in the sea of fans out there in Mexico. But ETN, it is always great to see you and always great to have you on the show. I know we were going crazy in the Young Reporter chat in terms of the goals that were happening and the way the game was playing out. But man, oh man, this is tough for Team Mexico as the second of the 3 host nations to fall in the round of 16. So what went down from your perspective on one of the best matches of the 2026 FIFA World Cup tournament so far?
First of all, hello Spencer, hello Drew. It's the same story with Mexico. Always so close to get the next step, but well, today Mexico's national team got 3 mistakes, and the 3 mistakes became in goals. You know, you need to have a perfect match with this kind of rivals. When you are playing with a powerful team as Brazil, as England, as I don't know, France, and Netherlands, all these kind of teams, those kind of teams, you know, you need to have a perfect match. Mexico couldn't do that. The first goal was a mistake by Jorge Sanchez and by Roberto Alvarado because they couldn't follow Bellingham, the mark of Bellingham, and then they received the goal. The second goal, unfortunately, Mora is getting his first mistake in all the tournament, and maybe I hope this didn't mark his career because he make in part he made the goal of England, and well, you know, Mexico got a lot of the ball, tried a lot of time to get the next goal, the third goal, but at the end, in the last part of the match, Mexico lost the ideas to attack. Only the same play, the cross ball to the box. But if England is playing with taller players, with a goalkeeper as Jordan Pickford who will catch every ball, you need to change the play. You need to attack in different ways. Maybe crossed balls so close to the line, maybe try to shoot out of the box, and Mexico didn't do that. Well, Mexico never been has never been in under in the other matches. Today was the first time, and we couldn't see an answer from the bench.
Yeah, first of all, this game was a thriller and probably
Yep.
one of, if not the game of the tournament. Estadio Azteca was absolutely insane, and I got the answer for you on the attendance. It was 80,000 people were there. Specifically, I think it was 80,824 were in attendance, and they were absolutely going crazy. This was going to be a tough game for England coming in because of the altitude change and, just the environment change of how that stadium is, and I knew that they were going to have a slight disadvantage there, but this game was just unreal. I mean, so many chances in the first 40 before the goals even happened. There were so many chances. Mexico, Jimenez had some of the best headers I've ever seen, and credit to England's Pickford in goal, making some crazy saves there in that first half. But Jude Bellingham was one of, if not the best player on the field today. I think that the first goal he had, it was a little bit of poor marking on Mexico's back line. Harry Kane made a beautiful run to kind of draw the Mexico defender away, and Bellingham kind of got a free header there. And then Mora, he's 17, crucial mistake there, turning the ball over right after England got their first goal. And of course, England, with the talent they have, they're going to pounce on that. Harry Kane with a beautiful cross in the box for Bellingham to get his second goal in 3 minutes. So they're already at a big disadvantage there. I do love, though, that they got one before half. They kind of lifted the crowd up and got the Azteca rocking a little bit. Quinones, when you need a goal for Mexico, Quinones has typically delivered, and he's typically been there. And I know he got subbed out later in the game, but he had a great game, and this Mexico team had a great game. And then unfortunate to give up a penalty, especially when England was playing with 10 men at that point. A silly challenge by Kansa to get the red card for England, and that came in the 55th minute. So there was a lot of opportunity for Mexico then. It was only 2-1 at that point. There was a lot of opportunity for Mexico to claw their way back, and giving up that penalty was very unfortunate. A little bit of a miscommunication between the keeper and the defender, and Harry Kane added on to his goal scoring tally in this World Cup. But Mexico clawed back, and I think after they got their penalty, I did find it a little weird. I agreed with you, Etienne, about how their play was in the last 20 minutes of the game. It felt like the same pattern of style over and over. It felt like they kept crossing balls into the box, but it just became too easy and too predictable. I think Pickford was able to catch a lot of the balls at the top of the box or punch them out, and it seems like Mexico didn't really get the good quality of looks that I was hoping for, especially with England being a man down, but still had a lot of chances there at the end of that game. What was almost an own goal. It was just an unbelievable game of soccer to watch, and I think it kept everybody entertained and kept everybody on their seat. Heartbreaking for Mexico to lose the way that they did, especially in their home stadium, but credit to England for gutting it out and really playing solid defense that last 25.
There are a lot of directions I want to go in with this. First of all, this is the first time that Mexico has lost an international game in Mexico City Stadium since 2013. This is also, you mentioned it, Drew, about a lot of the factors that were going into this against England. I mean, we were talking about and quoting Stu Holden a lot where he said England's going to melt. Thank God it was a 58-degree day in Fahrenheit in Mexico for the English. Thank God there was an hour delay because of a lightning storm that helped contribute to the colder temperatures. Yes, it was 80% humidity, which doesn't help on that. But 80% and basically rainy conditions, it rains basically all the time in England. So like it was pretty much the same kind of. Yeah, it's just normal.
It's similar to UK.
Yeah. Well, not only that, the fact that the English national team had to book 15 hotels in Mexico City because of what happened to Ecuador and how it clearly worked in messing with their mojo. I would not. I seriously hope that all of the fans who were in stadium from England got back to their hotels or where they were staying at safely, because I would not want. Well, more so, I know the English are polite. No one, unless they have a whole bunch of alcohol in their system, no one would be stupid enough to engage or try to like some fan bases that we know in the United States, Drew, where they could get very toxic very quickly. But I hope they got back safely, because I would not want to be wearing an English jersey walking out of Mexico City Stadium in that sea of disappointed and heartbroken fans. Like it, and again, we're going to talk about the Argentina-Cabo Verde matchup, but there's a difference between when Argentina fans were hugging the Cabo Verde people afterwards because they at least gave them a good matchup and it was, a bit of cordial and respect there. There wasn't going to be any respect from Mexico's fans for the English fans because of the heartbreak that happened in that one. But just like everything everything was going against England. I mean, even England's coach said in the press conference, we physically cannot adjust to the altitude. Like, he was like, I'm even getting headaches just sitting in the hotel because of the mile above sea level issue. And yeah, it's just something we have to deal with. And they beat all of the odds. Like, anytime England had any opportunities on the penalty kick or had the ball, it was a sea of boos. Like, I'm sure that, and that's part of why in the post-game presser, Harry Kane's voice was cracking and sore because he was having to scream his head off to communicate with everyone else on the pitch because the fan base in there for Mexico was making it impossible for them to communicate. So everything's stacking against them. And a red card on, by the way, very stupid challenge. I know you're going for the ball, but when you're cleat up like that and sliding over for a player, you're going to get a red card. Like, even though it wasn't given immediately, you're going to get a red card. And I thought USA's challenge in like the 65th minute of being 35 minutes on a man disadvantage was bad. This was basically an entire half of England being a man down. And the fact that they not only got a penalty kick to give them a cushion goal against Team Mexico when they're at a man disadvantage, but were able to hold the fort down. And the only way that Mexico scored again was on a penalty kick because of a clip in the box again. Like, it's, oh man, this is disappointing. Not only that, one thing I want to point out, ETN, I want to get your thoughts on this. When was the last time you saw a captain substituted at halftime? Like, I get Cesar Montes maybe wasn't playing the game that he should have, but a captain being substituted at halftime, you talk about sending a message to the locker room and to the rest of your team of that you all need to do better.
No. Cesar Montes suffered an injury before the match. For that reason was the
before, and it was aggravated
before the match. But he is still in the start line, and for that reason he played from the start. During the first half, he got how to say the injury attacked him again.
Do you think if he was healthy, it would have made a major difference for Team Mexico tonight?
Well, today was the perfect day to get the next step. I said some minutes ago. Today, we as Mexicans, we got the stadium, we got the level over the sea. We got the perfect environment, even the pollution of Mexico City. Another thing, England gotta travel from Kansas to Dallas, Dallas to Kansas, Kansas to Boston, Boston to Kansas, Kansas to Atlanta. If I'm not wrong, The third match was in New Jersey. New Jersey, Kansas, again Atlanta, Kansas, and then Kansas, Mexico City. Was around 1 day in an airplane for England before
Yeah.
this match.
Yeah.
Okay, Mexico got a lot of advantage today. The conditions, the stadium, even the England team was so tired before this match. Even the level over the sea. Today was the perfect day to Mexico to play against England. But the powerful teams have this. They have someone different. They have maybe someone who's when everything is bad can change the match. For that reason, today Jude Bellingham, Harry Kane, and Jordan Pickford made the difference. Even when England wasn't playing good enough to qualify to the next round.
Drew, I'm a numbers guy again. And you know that I'm a guy who points out the very egregious things that happen in this sort of stuff. Let me just read you the numbers on this. Mexico, attempts on goal 20. On target 5. England, attempts on goal 6. On target 5. Like, especially because the last couple of recaps we had in this episode alone of talking about single-digit shots on target, the fact that England was able to get 3 goals out of 5 shots on target, 60% success rate. I mean, yes, in the United States, that's a failing grade. But in terms of on-target goals, here's one that's even worse for you. Mexico, corner kicks, 12.
Oh.
England, 2. And Mexico had the ball 65% of the time. And England, yellow cards 4, Mexico 2. Which, by the way, the officiating in this one, I know the Fox Sports crew talked about, like they mentioned, they felt it was a well-officiated game by this crew from, I believe, is either Australia. I feel like there was a lot more leniency in this one, which you kind of have to in a game like this, in my opinion, where you let things slide a little bit. But there were a couple of calls I felt like deserved some cards or deserved a lot more leniency than was being given on the officiating side. But officiating did not lose this game. That's the point I'm making. But it's like 12-2 on corner kicks. 5 shots on target, and England makes 3 goals out of well, technically 2 because one of them being a penalty kick, so technically 40% success rate in a way, and then penalty kick that and just go in 1-for-1 on that. But I just this was Mexico's game to win. They had the crowd, they had the momentum on their side, and they possessed the ball 65% of the time. This is. I think ETN summed it up best when he started on this appearance in saying that this is typical performance from the Mexico national team. I hate to say it because they were looking so good heading into this, especially with their 2-0 win against Ecuador and looking like they were getting hot at the right time. But you're not going to win if you're not capitalizing on your opportunities, and especially if you're only like on target. I mean, yes, 20% of your shots going in are fine, but the fact that you had to rely on a penalty kick just to keep it interesting, like it, I don't know. This is credit to England. I mean, going into a hostile environment, Drew, and getting it done, but Mexico should have taken this in a huge way, man.
Yeah, I think that it goes to show you that this was anybody's game, and the lack of shots from England is a little bit concerning because I didn't know they had that low of shots. But I think a lot of the possession and the corner kicks came in that last 20 minutes from Mexico. I think that they dominated. First of all, they dominated the ball as soon as they scored that penalty from like the 70th minute on. the only team with the ball was Mexico. And they had so many opportunities there at the end where they just kept kind of switching the field and lumping balls into the box. But I just felt like they should have attacked from a different angle. And that's what killed them at the end of the game. I think that they had potential to send this game send this game to extra time, even win the game. And especially, like you said, with that many shots to shots on target ratio, 20-5, that's not a good ratio that you want to have. So I think that they have a lot that they're going to think about after the game, and they're going to let this one soak in, and hopefully they can try to change the narrative of of Mexico and Mexico football. But it's a heartbreaking loss.
Yes,
And
we have
yeah.
we have a phrase here in Mexico. We play it as never, but we lost as ever. Today
Yeah.
was again was again this phrase.
The last thing I will say, and you alluded to it a little bit earlier, Drew. Shout out to Jordan Pickford, man. Like, especially this could have easily been a tie game. With we were mentioning about how Raul Jimenez had some incredible shots that were early on when Mexico was putting the pressure on. That one shot that managed to curl around and was going into the corner. Like, it easily would have swung the pendulum in favor of Mexico if that had gone in. But Jordan Pickford just was in great positioning, had quick reaction time on that stuff. And I think it was off of maybe his middle or ring finger where he was able to get that out and it forced it to be a corner kick. Like, very easily, Jordan Pickford. I know it's sort of voting a little bit, and obviously Jude Bellingham with getting 2 goals within the span of like 2 to 3 minutes, he's going to get man of the match. But if it was a clean sheet, then it'd be a different story. But Jordan Pickford could have easily been man of the match on this one because the saves that he had to make in terms of, yes, he only faced 5 on target, but in terms of 20 attempts on goal total and having to fend off several of those, man, if he continues to play at this level, England has got a real shot to go a lot deeper heading down the stretch here. And I know they're getting into the quarterfinals right now, and it's a couple more games potentially to go, but man, Jordan Pickford had such a great game. Like that's what you love to see as a goaltender. But shout out to England. They got it done. Hostile environment. It does not get easier for them against Norway, but at least the benefit is that both of these teams in Europe are not going to – I wonder which team is going to melt first in Miami. That is going to be sticky and hot, especially in the middle of July. That is, I do not envy either of those teams in that quarterfinal that they had to duke it out, especially because they're not used to that environment. But hey, at least it starts at 5 p.m., I guess, or maybe like 7, 8 p.m. Eastern. So at least the sun is gone a little bit, but it's still that is going to be a miserable quarterfinal for those two Northern Atlantic teams. But ETN, always good to see you. I'm sure we will have you on in some capacity in the future, even though Team Mexico has been eliminated. Always good to chat with you. But man, it's what a game to end this day's action for the round of 16. Man, it was a good match regardless of the result.
Thank you, Spencer. Thank you, Drew. Well, I hope to see you again in another moment. Well, tonight Mexico is eliminated, but well, it's part of the tournament. Have these kind of finals, kind of ends with some teams. Now, it's part of the beautiful sport, this beautiful game.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely.
As ETN joining us again down from Mexico on recapping what so far has been the match of the tournament. All right, moving on. Kansas City hosted Colombia, Ghana. Low-scoring matchup between these two teams, but Colombia managed to exit out. Although they scored early on with Johan Arias, who got the goal in the 14th minute. Got a yellow card, by the way, at 12 minutes. So 2 minutes afterwards, he had redemption on that aspect to score and knock it into the back of the net. And with substitutions and everything for Ghana, they had a couple of yellow cards. This was one of those matchups that was a little more, I guess, intriguing, one way to put it, especially because of how great Ghana had played in their group play. Colombia dominated this game throughout, 20 attempts on goal, 8 on target. Ghana had just 8 shots on goal, 0 of them were on target. Corners very minimal, combined 5 between the two, 60% ball possession for Colombia. Very much a classic football game, I'd say, Drew. And considering how Colombia tied in the previous matchup against Portugal, this is one of those I'm not one of those of like I'm concerned about Colombia like I've said on the other matches throughout this episode, but one of those I think that, especially with how good Ghana has been throughout group play, I think it's lucky that for Colombia, it's very lucky that they didn't have this go into extra time.
Yeah, I think this was one of those games that Colombia dominated. I think they were a little bit disappointed in themselves. They couldn't get more than one goal in the back of the net, and I think that credit to Ghana for battling. And Ghana battled this their whole World Cup journey. I mean, drawing against England, and some of the results they had were great. And this was a tough matchup. Colombia is a great team. We saw that in their early group stage, and even against Portugal as well. But this was one of those games where Colombia could have won by a lot more. I mean, every time you have 20 shots in a game, I think that there's always a good chance that you're going to win the game. So great performance. And I was a little bit disappointed that Suarez didn't score. James Rodriguez kind of, same thing. He didn't really make that much of an impact. I mean, he still, but I do like that they scored early. I still, think that they put the kind of like made sure Ghana didn't have any chance of like thinking they could make a run or anything like that. And this Colombia team is one of those interesting teams because they're kind of not talked about that much. Yep. Everybody kind of talks about the Frances and the Spains and the teams like that. I just feel like Colombia kind of gets unnoticed a little bit. So it was a good win for them.
Yeah, interesting that James Rodriguez also got substituted off at halftime with that captain change and such. And as far as I could tell, he wasn't like injured and didn't have any issues with physical health in that regard. But also interesting that they decided to substitute out Luis Diaz at the 90th minute, kind of late to do that sort of substitution on there. But yeah, I think end of the day, it's sometimes these round of 32 matchups have been like a warm up for teams. Sometimes it's been something where I know people have joked about, well, the round of 16, the tournament's actually starting, and which in some cases it has. Some of them people are fighting for their lives in a play-in game in a way, but I think for Ghana, great. Just a great run for them. I know that they had won. I think that it was either them or Congo DR, I think, had their first World Cup win in their team's history. Let me make sure I got that stat right. I had to scroll back through all of the reposts I've done recently.
Congo DR.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're right on that. It was one of the two. I'm trying to scroll back on this thing. Dang. It's somewhere on here. Yeah, that was Congo DR with winning against Uzbekistan. So, Ghana has been in a couple of times at this point with the World Cup. I mean, but for Ghana, especially in a Group L that no one really thought they were going to win it. Yeah, well, not win it, but no one really thought that they were going to escape out of it, especially with Croatia in the group. But the fact that they got, third place and were able to move along and such is still great for them. So for Ghana, I mean, decent run for you guys in the round of 32. I mean, grand scheme of things, there are worse ways to exit, as we've detailed in a couple of matches and such, but especially with that opening win in stoppage time against Panama and then tying with England, like who would have thought that was going to happen? And they were still able, because of how low of a score it was against Croatia, they were able to make it. So 1-1 heading into the round of 32 and then just losing by a early on goal. Pretty decent run for Ghana. I mean, grand scheme of things. I mean, I know nobody on the team wants to hear that, especially when they're eliminated. But, I mean, grand scheme of things, it's better than not getting into the elimination phase. But congratulations to Colombia. They move on, and they've got a matchup against Switzerland that'll occur in Vancouver in the further round of 16 matches. All right, let's go ahead and continue on in this round of 32 thing, and we're going to save the best for last because there's a relevant topic that happened today surrounding that. We'll go to another matchup that I was on site for in the round of 32 in Los Angeles. Spain, Austria. Oh man, this is just a clinic. Mentioned how Austria and Algeria, both of the teams had to tie to be able to move on to the next round, and they had a lot of back and forth stuff and a great match at the end of group play. But at the end of the day, Spain showed why they're one of the top teams in the FIFA Coca-Cola rankings. I mean, Oyarzabal in the 36th minute with an opening goal in the first half. Pedro Porro, 66th minute to give them a little more of a cushion. And then Oyarzabal again at the 89th minute, just shutting all hope down for Austria, which there were a couple of times where Austria was trying to pressure, but they didn't really generate anything from it. 5 attempts on goal, none of them on target. I mean, they just looked lifeless against Spain. 36% of the time they possessed the ball. 0 corner kick opportunities for Austria. Did not have a single time they had a set piece there. And not even a tale of two halves in this one, Drew. It was just straight up that Spain, as they've shown in spurts throughout this tournament and leading up to qualifying, that they were the better team today.
Spain has been Spain ever since that Cabo Verde draw, in my opinion. I think that this team is ready for the moment. I think they're ready to build off of their Euros win in 2024, and I think that this team is so talented. I mean, Lamine Yamal, I know he's not the one scoring the goals quite yet, but he still is just such a dynamic young player and makes such an impact on this team. And Austria was not really prepared for this game at all, in my opinion. I think that they kind of went into the game knowing that Spain was the much better team, and Spain was dominant. I mean, 23 shots, nine corner kicks. They dominated possession. This team's ready for the moment, and I think that it sets up a amazing round of 16 match with Portugal and Cristiano Ronaldo in what's going to be a great game.
Yeah, very much set it up, especially with another one of those sort of warm-up games, and I would argue that Portugal had a lot tougher draw. Now, granted, if they had just gotten 1 goal against Colombia, it would have been a different story, but they got a tougher draw in their sort of path trying to get to the promised land at the end of the tournament. But for Austria, one of those I would maybe say congratulations to, but very loosely. You had a win against Jordan, and you tied against Algeria at the end to qualify for the round of 32, and then got shut out by Argentina. So, I mean, you had a little bit easier of group play, I'd say, where you just had one main opponent, I suppose. But, it's just one of those matches where Spain has shown that they're Spain. And like you said, it's going to be a great round of 16 matchup when it occurs pretty soon when we're recording this. But congratulations to Spain. They move on. Austria heads back home to end their World Cup campaign in the round of 32. All right. Speaking of this other round of 32 matchup, there was an absolute barn burner. So after I attended this, well, actually, you know what? Let me bounce around, actually. Let me go a little bit in order here. We'll do Australia, Egypt. This one was also a bit of a barn burner, too, actually. And after this, we'll get into the Argentina Cabo Verde one. But the reason I say that is because there's a bit of a story context of watching this game in person in Dallas and then watching the Argentina Cabo Verde one at dinner before I headed off to Houston. Australia, Egypt. This was an interesting match going into it, especially considering Australia didn't do that much in the group stage. I mean, yeah, they beat Turkey. They tied with Paraguay, couldn't get a goal against the United States, and they barely managed to qualify because of the tie with Paraguay to take second place in the group, and they're winning against Turkey. So that kind of helped them on the. Gosh, excuse me. The yawns are starting to kick in. That's why I got a cough button over here. But Australia didn't really manage to get that much going in the group stage. They were able to get to the round of 32. And to be honest with you, Drew, this is one of those that Australia could have very easily have won. Like um, but the problem is they did not score any goals. The only goal that they got was from Hani Mohammed in the second half of the 55th minute. Now, it was a great cross. It would have potentially gotten headed in, but Hani, it went off of, I think, his shoulder, his head, and it got redirected into the goal. One of those the goalkeeper couldn't do anything about. But Ashur Imam with the first half goal. Here's the other thing that kind of irritates me about the Michelob Ultra Man of the Match. They put up that QR code saying, hey, you could vote for folks or vote for who you think is the superior player of the match. And here's the thing. I understand Mohamed Salah is a great player. He is fantastic. He is skilled. He didn't really do anything in this match, and he was voted the man of the match. I mean, before I eat my words here, let me make sure. Did he actually, Mohamed Salah, he played 133 minutes. He had 2 attempts on goal, 1 on target. He committed, I think he had 3 fouls, 4 on the stat line, but he didn't really do anything, and yet he was voted the man of the match. Like, why? I get in the past it used to be members of the media, they would kind of poll and ask about that stuff, and it made it sometimes a little more even. I get you're trying to do fan engagement, but Ashur Imam should have been the man of the match. Like, he either should have been the match, or to be honest with you, Shobir Mustafa, the goaltender for Egypt, probably could have been the man of the match too, because he also faced, what was it, a total for Australia, 16 shots. I mean, 1 on target, and he had an own goal slip past it. Thanks to his teammate, having an issue. But anyways, that's besides the point. The point is Egypt possessed the ball 58% of the time. They were 7-4 on corner kicks compared to Australia. They did not get more attempts on goal. They had more on target, 4-1. Egypt was very lucky that this went to a penalty shootout. They were very, very lucky that Harry Satar missed the opening PK shot for Australia, and that set the tone. And there's only so much you could do when you put the weight of the world on the shoulders of Lucas Harrington, an 18-year-old kid on the World Cup stage, and expecting him at that point, when if he doesn't make this PK, it's then a 1 and in for Egypt, pretty much. So it was just a disaster that unfolded, and not only that, but to mention the goaltender substitution, which was absolutely who in the world on the coaching staff for Australia thought that was a good idea 1 minute beforehand. Like, I've seen it time and time again. The only time it worked, it did work for the Netherlands in 2014, where they won against Costa Rica in an elimination round and went along. But it's been 12 years since that happened. Like, Patrick Beach wasn't the problem. Like, he was doing fine. There was one goal that was a rocket of a shot outside of the penalty box that there's only so much you could do because there were several moving screens. And I think one of the Australian defenders actually got a slight piece of it for it to redirect. It was going on target regardless. That's why it wasn't an own goal. But all that to be said, this was the Socceroos needed to score a goal. It would have been a 1-0 loss for them against Egypt if it had not been a own goal deflection and such. But hey, Egypt gets their first win in an elimination game in World Cup history because the Socceroos couldn't get it done.
Yeah, I think this was a huge milestone for Egypt and Mo Salah as well. I think that, he doesn't know we don't know if it's going to be his last World Cup or not, but he did have a good game, although he didn't really show it on the stats side of things. I think he did have a good game in building Egypt's attack and things of that nature. And like you said, this was Egypt's first World Cup knockout stage victory, which is a huge thing for them, especially considering where they were 4 years ago. I mean, I thought that, they played amazing. I thought the play of, Ashur in the 13th minute, giving them their opening goal and, his second goal for Egypt. And I think that he played great. He could have easily got the man of the match award. Maybe, could have gone over Salah. But I think the biggest storyline this game was Australia in the 90th minute, like we talked about, replacing Beach with Ryan, who I don't really understand what that tactic was and what that move was. It's like they thought that Matt Ryan would be better for the penalty shootout because they had a feeling that that's where the nature of the game was going to go. But Ryan didn't even come close. Like, he didn't save a single penalty and didn't even really come close to saving one. I mean, he didn't really, wasn't like he made the right guessing or he just couldn't, but like he didn't even come close to saving some of these. So credit to Egypt for being more precise with their PKs in that PK shootout. And Australia's got a lot to think about. And I think a lot to think about their decision to send on their other goalkeeper there when I don't think the problem was Patrick Beach at all. So yeah, a bit of an interesting decision there, but credit to Egypt. I do feel like Egypt was the better team throughout the match. So yeah, I think they advance and they have a pretty interesting matchup with Argentina waiting in the loom. So.
I just realized my laptop charger came unplugged, so I saw the battery was about halfway. I'm like, that would not be good if that
No.
suddenly died in the middle of the podcast recording. But no, you're right. And I mean, I asked Patrick Beach about it afterwards. Not that it was a PR answer, but he was very straightforward about. You'd have to ask the coaches because I was just told about it last second, which I think that's the way you should go about it anyways, from a coaching perspective.
For
Of
sure.
like, don't talk about these sort of things of like, I say, hey, well, you're going to get pulled if it's a penalty kick anyway. And I've heard sometimes coaches have talked about where it's made sense to you do penalty kicks in practices, and whichever goaltender you think does the best, the most amount of saves or shows the most promise and such, then you pull him in. But still, again, Patrick wasn't the problem. I didn't feel like he deserved to be, pulled on that. And I've talked with other former goalkeepers at the FIFA level, and they felt like, well, if you pull a goaltender who's been doing great right before he gets the penalty kicks, you're basically serving him a cake and like taking the icing off of it at the last second. Or taking the cherry off of the top. Like, why would you not give them, that opportunity to prove that, oh, they've been great. Now let me prove that I'm even better at the top stuff. Because again, the one goal that snuck past wasn't, Beach reacted to it and it was just outside of his fingertips. But you had like two defenders who were screening in front, and I'd have to look at the replay again, but I'm pretty certain that it was a slight tap off of one of the defenders' foots that it was still going on goal, so it wouldn't have been an own goal. But it kind of made it bounce a little bit more to where Beach, unless he had been able to predict that, he wouldn't have been able to save it. So, I don't know. It was just a weird substitution for Australia, and it didn't pay off, especially because, like you said, he didn't save any of them. I think he dove in the right direction for one of two of them, but they were outside of his reach. He just reacted not quick enough. But it also doesn't help when, again, your star captain, one of your star players, doesn't land the first penalty kick attempt, and again, what do you expect with a kid? This is one of those things where 18-year-old kid, we're either going to be praising, look at how poised and controlled and amazing he is in a clutch moment in this, representing his country, and where on the other hand, we're talking about he's 18 and he's in his first World Cup. Of course, the moment was too big for him. So it's going to be one of those, two things. But anyway, for the Socceroos, they head home. I mean, for Egypt, again, history, they made it, but that's probably the only history they're going to make at this World Cup, to be honest with you. And we'll get into the predictions a little bit, but it doesn't get any easier from here for Egypt, or Egypte, as they call it down over in Egypt. Okay. So once this matchup got done, I got through the mix zone and got through everything. I went over next to the stadium to get dinner before heading out to Houston, and caught this barn burner, this amazing, that was the match of the tournament, which is now the match of the round of 32. Argentina and Cabo Verde. Dude, what in the world? So this was one of the hottest matches on record, too. Especially the heat and the humidity. You saw all the players, including Messi, towards the end where he's just drenched in sweat. Just playing his heart out. And everyone on that Cabo Verde roster played their heart out as well. Which, by the way, side note, the officiating was great. I do not, for the life of me, understand how this Canadian officiating crew did not melt in the Miami heat and humidity. I don't understand how that didn't happen. But man, Lionel Messi opening up scoring as he usually does. And every Duarte D. Roy matching it in the second half. And once we got to extra time, it was Lisandro Martinez getting a goal there, and then Sidney Lopez Cabral with a rocket of a shot. Like, amazing shot that curled into the opposite post, and then unfortunately an own goal by Dine Borges, which was ruled later on the stat line. It was an own goal because of the deflection off of his shoulder that redirected it on net, which could have sent this to penalty kicks. But my goodness, mentioned a little bit to it earlier of how a lot of Argentina fans were going over and hugging the Cabo Verde players, saying thank you and showing a tremendous amount of respect for the fight they gave Argentina and such. This is another one of those where I'm slightly concerned about Argentina. I mean, Cabo Verde is a good team, don't get me wrong. And it's no disrespect to them, but I'm getting slightly concerned now with these perennial teams that are getting into these elimination phase games, and they're not handily taking care of business against teams that they should. I mean, yes, Cabo Verde tied with Spain, but as we mentioned going into this round of 32, Drew, this is a team that had the least amount of points. They tied all three of their matchups to get to the round of 32. So, like, this feels like for Argentina, I mean, they outshot them 22-16, 10-5 on target with shots, by the way. Both teams that were even on 8 corners each. Especially with Argentina possessing the ball 63% of the time, I felt like Argentina let this game get way too far outside of them. But Cabo Verde also had some incredible shots that you'd normally see from guys like Messi or David Beckham.
Yeah, first of all, just watching this game is just it was, this is why you watch the World Cup, for moments like this, and this was such a memorable run for Cape Verde, and they are just so poised, and for a nation that's never been in the World Cup before, one of the tiniest nations that exist, to draw Spain, draw Uruguay, and then come out and literally play the defending champs to the final whistle of extra time in an absolute barn burner it's just so poetic. And their goals were both incredible, especially that second one by Cabral. That may be the best finish I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I mean, the bend he put on that ball was crazy, and it was one of those that you never expected them to equalize. When Messi got his first goal for Argentina, then you were like, okay, they're probably going to pull away. Boom, they equalize. Romero gets a goal for Argentina. Boom, they equalize. This was just an unbelievable showing from Cape Verde, and Vocina. Vocina's just the gift that keeps on giving, honestly. I mean, he's gotten so wildly popular from this World Cup for his stellar performance at age 40. So this is a little bit of a wake-up call to Argentina. I think that they needed this, honestly. I think that Egypt is a team that we've seen in the past can be decent, and do feel like Argentina got a pretty easier side of the bracket in their matchup with Egypt. But yeah, this is a telling sign that they need to wake up, because this Cape Verde team, although historical run, they are not a great teams in terms of rankings. You know what I mean? So I think that there's a lot this Argentina team could improve on, but luckily they, like we said, in this tournament, it's survive and advance. But this game was just incredible. I mean, it really was. It was a battle from start to finish, and you had everybody on the field. As soon as that final whistle happened, everybody in Miami just hit the ground and was just like, oh my gosh, like out of breath. And I love that Vocina at the end of the game kind of picked all of his teammates up and said, look, guys, we're not going to hang our heads. We did significantly more than anybody ever thought we would. And they have so much to be proud of. They made their whole nation proud. And yeah, I mean, it's just really one of those games where you look back and you're like, this is credit to both teams. Both teams should feel really happy about themselves. Argentina, on the other hand, maybe should feel a little bit more of like, okay, we need to
Yeah.
play better if we're gonna repeat as champions.
Well, and especially, I think it was a cool moment that the Cabo Verde players. Now, granted, there are signs in the mix zone for the media that says no selfie, no autograph requests. Doesn't apply to the players. Like a whole bunch of these Cabo Verde players, they were getting selfies with Messi, especially knowing that's probably the last time they're going to see him and everything. So I thought that was a very cool moment. Gosh, this plug keeps. Okay, looks like I'm good now. I keep breaking the fourth wall in this, Drew. It's bad. But I think, yeah, for Cabo Verde, there's nothing to hold your heads about. And I saw also the flight that when the national team came back, they were greeted with a huge shower of love and appreciation from their fans. Like everybody was just so happy to see them in the great performance and how they made their nation proud. Especially, they're the smallest nation by population to reach the elimination phase of the FIFA World Cup. Like just an accomplishment in itself with the recruitment that they've done. I mean, Vozina, again, he's got millions of followers now on Instagram because of this World Cup and the great performance he's had at the age of 40. I mean, it's we were very fortunate to see Cabo Verde's performance and see it all play out on the pitch. But man, it's you hate to see the Cabo Verde faced off against Argentina at the beginning, but you also love seeing at least this result where they forced the defending champs to extra time. And again, especially considering the hot and humid, sticky conditions down in Miami, and like that was where John Strong was in the was calling that game with Stu Holden in the open air press boxes or media tribune stuff. His exact words were, "I think I lost 5 pounds in sweat today." That's how bad the conditions were in Miami, and that's why I'm saying between Norway and England next week, it is going to suck. Like it is, there is no skimping it in the next couple of days. It is going to suck for those two teams, especially two of them that are not used to hot, humid climates. But anyways, Cape Verde, congratulations. You guys made a great performance in your opening debut at the FIFA World Cup. You got a great performance that you should be absolutely proud of yourselves on, especially again. No one really thought you were going to get this far, but now teams can take you seriously as you as you head along in future international play stuff. Or Argentina, they got a matchup in the next round against Egypt, which probably won't be as easy, but we'll see how it goes. That one's in Atlanta, so they got an indoor climate-controlled environment at least, so they get a little bit of relax from the heat. All right, the matchup I went on site for the next day, Canada and Morocco, which was the kickoff of the round of 16 and resulted in the first of the 3 host nations to be eliminated from this World Cup. That was just a clinic put on by Morocco in Houston Stadium. I mean, tale of two halves, scoreless at the end of the first half. It got really physical in the last basically 16 minutes of the first half. There was a little bit of shoving between the players. The head referee, this was an English officiating crew, by the way. Michael Oliver basically looked at him and said, you start doing anything else, I'm going to give out cards. Gave out 5 yellow cards, Drew, in the final 16 minutes of the first half, and gave out another yellow card within the first 5 minutes, and then Morocco just opened things up. They decided, you know what, we're done. We don't want to. Not only that, Canada also was struggling a lot. And I think let's take aside the stats here. I mean, Morocco possessed it 58% of the time. The shots were really low for both sides. Morocco scored only 5 attempts on goal, 4 on target. Canada had 10 attempts on goal, 3 on target. Canada also had 11 corner kicks. Morocco had 1. And Canada wasn't able to capitalize on net at all during this competition group. But take all of this stuff aside, in my opinion, and I know with England and Mexico today, it sort of changed a little bit about the home field advantage is everything. I think it does make a difference because I think Mexico, if they were in the United States, if they somehow lost their group and had to go up to the United States for any of their elimination games, I think it would not have fared well for them. And I think that's what played out here with Canada, to be honest with you. I think, especially with them losing to Switzerland, being sort of deflated and being sent away from Vancouver, I think that, yes, they narrowly escaped South Africa. And very easily could have been South Africa and Morocco facing off, which that would have been a ruckus environment in Houston if it was between two the AFC teams. But I do think that this very much had a factor on it. Now, thank God Canada got to play in a indoor stadium, to be honest with you. Because, I mean, Los Angeles, it was at least a little bit open air, and it kind of helped them because the sun wasn't directly beating down. But thank God they got to play in an indoor stadium on the 4th of July, because otherwise they would have extremely melted against Morocco. But I think being away from Canada definitely destroyed their reasonable chances to make a deep run. And not only that, Morocco, this is a solid team. I mean, their head coach led the under-20 team to a World Cup title this past fall. He immediately got promoted within a matter of months to the head coach of the men's national team. And it's a good coaching staff, good in Mohamed Ohabi. He is a great coach. He knows how to get the best out of his players, and that's what ended up playing out on the pitch in Houston.
Yeah, I think that Morocco was the better team, although Canada had 23 crosses to Morocco's like 4, which is just insane. And then,
Yeah.
the corner kick difference was a little bit concerning too. I think it just goes to show you how great Morocco's back line is and how solid their defense is and how their defense kind of leads into their attack. You saw it. We've seen that throughout the whole tournament. I mean, this Morocco team has beaten really good teams. They drew with Brazil, which is a really good team. And we knew this about Morocco going in. I mean, we knew how talented they were. Canada, a little bit frustrating, for their home crowd to, see them. Although the game was in Houston, they're still one of the host nations to get eliminated. You never want to see that. You never want that to happen. But yeah, just credit to Morocco, man. I think that they played a great game, and they're a great team. They have a really, really tough matchup in the quarterfinals. But I do want to mention Saibari for Morocco got hurt, came out in the 22nd minute. He is a crucial piece for this Moroccan national team. If they want any shot of being France, he has got to be healthy. So hopefully he will return for the next one.
Yeah, it's tough with Saibari's injury especially that early on in the game, and that, in my opinion, was a big reason why they had no score until the second half. Because if Saibari's in there, it makes a huge difference on that. And man, it was a sea of Moroccan red, not Canadian red. There were a couple of Canadian whiteout jerseys that were sprinkled within the crowd in Houston Stadium, but man, it was a loud, ruckus crowd for Team Morocco's fan base. Man, it was a sight to see, and they were all just continually going throughout the matchup in terms of cheering and trying to get things on, man. But congrats to Morocco. Again, doesn't get easier for you going into the quarterfinals against Kylian Mbappe, Olise, and the rest of the French national team, but you've got a chance to head to the semifinals if you can get it done with a win over in Boston. All right. Second to last matchup before we get into the relevant Team USA one, Brazil-Norway. My goodness. I was at the press conferences today for USA-Belgium, and a guy in the row in front of me had the game going on his tablet. I kept kind of glancing over and looking at the score stuff and everything, which, fun note for you, it's really cool in the press conference when, I sit down and I look, walking in next to me is Jenny Taft and John Strong, like literally walk in and sit the same row as me to get their press conference stuff and everything. And they were also reacting and looking at the score stuff and everything. And I look at John at the end of this was when it became 1-0 with Holland's first goal. We got done with the press conference for Coach Pochettino, and I looked up and said, "You see that Holland goal?" He's like, "Yeah, he's a problem. You can't stop him." Which they couldn't stop him. 2 goals for Erling Haaland, and those are the only 2 goals Norway scored. I mean, you got. Let's back up a little bit. Bruno Guimaraes missed penalty kick, 14th minute, which easily could have put the pressure on Norway. And they didn't get a goal until Neymar Jr. managed to score a penalty kick 4 minutes after he got a yellow card, by the way. And they substituted in, Neymar, which turns out it's, his final game of his international career for Brazil. But man, it was just too little, too late. Norway was the better team. I mean, it sucks as well because Brazil outshot them 14-4 on target. Norway had 9, 5 of those on target. Norway possessed the ball 65% of the time. Both teams had the even amount of 5 corners. It sucks for Brazil because there continues to be this narrative that just will not go away, at least for another 4 years of, well, Brazil's got the most titles for the FIFA World Cup in its history. The last time they won was in 2002. They've only made it to the quarterfinals. I believe this is now the first time that Brazil has not made it past the round of 16 since I think a couple of decades. I'd have to look at the stat line at it again, but it's been years. It's been a long time since this happened. Oh, here we are. Brazil's loss to Norway is their earliest World Cup exit, 1990, where they lost to Argentina 1-0 in the round of 16, Drew. The narrative continues for Brazil on them just being a team that can't get it done. They haven't won it since since basically 2002. So this is tough if you're a fan of Brazil. This is tough if you've been supporting this team and hoping that they would get something done. But man, oh man, Norway, Erling Haaland, he even said in press conferences he thought France was going to win it all. But now they're continuing to move along. They're not having any, necessary struggles. Then they get to face off against England in the quarterfinal in a sweat pool. But man, Erling Haaland is on a different level right now, and they knock out one of the other heavy favorites to win the 2026 FIFA World Cup in Brazil.
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge credit to Norway. I mean, Norway played a great game, and they beat Brazil at their own game. They outpossessed them so much in this game, and there were times where I was a little concerned with Norway's attack. They kind of felt like they were just possessing the ball a bunch, but not really creating a lot of great chances. But Brazil kind of looked very conservative this game, as if they were just content with playing a lot of players back and then counterattacking when it was there. And obviously you can do that when you have a guy like Vinny Jr. on the pitch, and we know how much of a danger he is. But this game was all really down to the brilliance and the excellence of Erling Haaland. I think that it was so amazing how a player can touch the ball so less but still impact the game as much as Erling Haaland does. And that header was just unreal. I don't know why Norway didn't do that more, because you know how much of a danger he is. I mean, they lumped one ball into the box and just an unbelievable header into the right corner. And then his second goal was just world class. I mean, took one touch from outside the box and just a unbelievable strike on his left foot to make it 2-0. And that was really the dagger. That's what ended it. Brazil had chances. Casemiro had one where all he had to do was slide it across the box to Neymar, and he kind of overshot it a little bit. But credit to the Norwegian goalkeeper. I do want to make that a point. He played great this game. He was making some unbelievable saves, and he kept them in the game a lot of the time, especially on that PK save early on in the 13th minute. So credit to the Norwegian goalkeeper. I thought Martin Ødegaard played a great game. He is so dynamic. He's one of the most important players. I know everybody gives all the credit to Haaland because Haaland's the one that scores the goals, but Martin Ødegaard is the engine behind this Norway team. And I think that it's very important that everybody makes that known. And Neymar was able to get a penalty at the end of the game there. I thought it was a pretty soft penalty call, but he was able to get one goal, kind of his send-off of his career with Brazil, which has been a great one. I mean, thanks for the memories, Neymar. It's been a fun ride. But this Norway team was just better. They were just better today, and they didn't care about the rankings or how top dog in the history of Brazil because they were the better team. And now, honestly, you got to look at that move that they made to rest their players against France. You got to
Yeah.
look at that move a little differently now because is that what's, winning them these games? It's definitely, to me, got to play a part. So, yeah, Holland keeps scoring. He's now even with Messi and Mbappe on 7 goals. And, yeah, just a great performance by Norway. They're becoming one of my favorite teams to watch in this World Cup.
Say his name, Orjan Nyland, the goaltender for
Nyland,
Norway,
yes.
and how incredible he had of a
He has been.
performance. Facing, only 4 shots on target, but 14 total. Just especially, again, the tone setter for the game on that save for the penalty kick, especially when we had not just a day, but several round of 32 matchups where penalty shootouts or penalty kicks have been riddled with goaltenders not making saves on that. So would have easily been a 1-0 lead for Brazil and changed the entire swing of this game had it not been stopped. So, but Norway, yeah.
I also want to make a point that I was really confused when Vinny Jr. didn't take the PK for Brazil.
Yeah.
So I don't know what that was about, but
They took a note from Germany's playbook on the penalty shootout of, hey, let's go ahead and be confusing on who's going to take the shot. Let's just not make a decision on here, even though it should have been, Vinny Jr. or, it should have been your Marquinhos, because usually you have the captain is supposed to take those penalty kicks. So Marquinhos could have done it. But yeah, it should have been Vinny. He probably definitely should have, taken the PK. So, but regardless, also, by the way, fun fact for you, as Brazil exits out of the FIFA World Cup 2026, this is the team I've noticed that has the most single named players on their roster. Like, you don't have a lot of last names and things because it's just most places it's not a thing in some countries, but. I just look at this match report and I see a lot of just one names, and my mind is like, where's the last name? Where's the middle name? I'm not seeing them on here. But look, for a Brazil team that obviously, exits here when they had a pretty good showing in group play, and granted they tied with Morocco, but blowout win of Haiti and Scotland and a close victory against Japan. It's tough to see them exit out in the way that they have, but Norway got it done. Norway made a big difference, and they now, move on for this next matchup in, again, we mentioned the sweat pool of facing off against England in Miami. Okay, I was in the San Francisco Bay Area for this one. Drew and I were texting during this with how freaking stressful it was. Okay, so USA, Bosnia and Herzegovina. The media noise was prevalent, everyone, that it was very much a loud noise of, hey, if the United States has no excuse to lose this one, the United States should very easily win in this round of 32 matchup. Was not the case. Close matchup, a lot of chances, really close. Following Balogun, just amazing for him to weave through the basically read. It started out with a bad clearance by the goalkeeper and then bopped up, bounced around basically like a pinball, and then Balogun managed to read it perfectly around the top of the penalty arc and then darted to the back of the net. Like, great opportunity, and especially going into the halftime locker room too, making a difference there. And then you have we'll talk about the red card in a second, but Balogun initially not called a card or not a foul on the pitch, and then VAR steps in and says, hey, you need to take a look at this, to the referee, Rafael Klaus, saying we need to take a review on this. Decision was a red card. And then the United States basically for about 35 to 40 minutes of game time was playing on their heels, had to basically go more to his own coverage and make sure that they were not allowing many chances coming out. What a free kick by Malik Tillman, dude. Like, especially weaving in between the wall, trying to figure out where it was going to go and just immediately, darted in, found its way on. But, man, it's... let me read you the stat line, Drew. The United States, can you believe they only had 8 attempts on goal throughout that game?
That was a little surprising.
2 of them on target. Bosnia and Herzegovina, 10 of them on goal, 3 on target. Corners 4-3, so not as huge a metric. Bosnia 53% possession of the ball. The United States had 13 direct free kicks. Bosnia and Herzegovina had 7. And man, it's look, we'll talk about the red card on this sort of thing, but I'm not going to be one of those. I'm not going to be like Alexi Lalas, where I'm blazingly arrogant and going full on pro USA on this stuff. I know I've got the America 250 pin on, but that's besides the point. But this showed me that the United States is a lot stronger of a team than a lot of people realized going into this tournament. I think there was some sentiments that the United States had some good options on the team, and that Pulisic was good and they had some other good stars, but I think that this kind of showed, and I know Bosnia Herzegovina is not, they're a decent team, but not that great grand scheme of things. But I do think that this gave a lot more hope, not just to Team USA fans that, oh, maybe we have something going here, but I think it did send a little bit of shockwaves to the rest of the teams here in this World Cup that, hey, we don't even need our full team strength. We'd love to have it, but we don't even need all 11 guys to be able to, get things done and not concede a goal, especially with the amount of times Bosnia was getting really close in the box. So for the last match of this World Cup that occurred in the San Francisco Bay Area, man, it was a treat to watch, and it was a rocking environment in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just credit to the United States for getting the job done. I thought we started a little sloppy there in the beginning of the game. I thought that they could have played a little bit cleaner in the final third in the first half, but Bosnia actually created a lot of chances there. I mean, credit to Matt Freese in goal. He played a great game. But Bosnia could have easily scored. So I think this was kind of a little bit of a wake-up call for us. Balogun has been a sensation this tournament. I mean, he scoring again, and it was unfortunate what happened with the red card, which we'll talk about, that later. But yeah, I mean, he's been the driving force. I mean, behind this, I think he's actually gained a little bit more, popularity than Christian Pulisic has in terms of a United States fan favorite. But yeah, this team has been tested, and they were tested for 45 minutes of this game without their full 11 out there. Having to play with 10 men is tough, and having their backs to the wall, that's never fun. But Tillman with that free kick, and that was such a tough angle because you have to get it over the wall but lower than the goal. You know how hard that is to do when you're that close, and then the bend he put on it as well. It was this unbelievable free kick from Tillman. But great win for the U.S. I still think there's a lot of room for improvement, and Balogun getting that red card was interesting. I think that as we all know now, that it has been rescinded and there is no red card anymore, and it was appealed. And I think that FIFA made the right decision in doing that. I know a lot of people around the world and a lot of the media is kind of just like criticizing that. But I think that they ended up making the right decision. I don't think his intentions when he was trying to win the ball was worthy of a red card, in my opinion. And yeah, I think that's how I am going to stand on it. I think that this U.S. team has been battle tested, and I think they're ready to go for the round of 16 versus Belgium.
Yeah, it should not have been a red card. Like, here's the thing: replay, and specifically in FIFA's stipulations on VAR, you can't use it to basically determine the intent or egregiousness of red cards, which we've seen it happen a couple times. So the red card was not rescinded. It was that his suspension was delayed up to a year, so that way it doesn't immediately apply for the World Cup, which is not unprecedented. Ronaldo got a red card in qualifiers, and he also got a 3-game suspension, which basically meant that he could play in the opening games here of the FIFA World Cup. And likely it's going to be that case where once Portugal is done, then they'll put him on the roster and have the 2 games. He'll serve out the suspension, which it'll be the same for Balogun when, if or whenever the United States is done with their World Cup stuff. I know that it basically the conduct that FIFA had on it was basically a procedural thing where it's not that they're not saying that the call was wrong in terms of whether or not it should have been a foul or yellow or red card. What they're saying is that not directly, but they're basically saying that it was a procedural issue and that VAR should not have been used in that moment, especially because there was not a card on the field and there was just an advantage sort of given or a free kick. So that's basically what happened there. And I agree. I think that it's unfortunate that it's being overshadowed right now by the political news about supposedly Donald Trump calling Infantino and asking for the review and such. And I'm not even going to get into all that, but it's basically FIFA already has rules for this kind of stuff, and
This is like
everybody,
Yeah,
it's
this is a thing that it's happened before. I think everybody's just kind of freaking out because this is like the first time in this tournament that something like this has happened. But this is normal in sports. Like it's a league policy. Like this is a normal thing to do. I think everybody's just kind of like, oh, it's the U.S. and we're the hosts, so I
when
think that's
actually the
why.
United States normally doesn't get this stuff. It's saved for the other stuff
True.
like Ronaldo or Messi. Now, the one thing I do agree that is a little bit suspicious on this, like, why 24 hours before the game? Like,
Yeah,
why on this decision, especially for something where a lot of people were saying this red card should not have been a thing? Like, was the FIFA disciplinary committee on 4th of July holiday and decided to
yeah,
wait until afterwards to say something? Because, like, I found out about it. Well, the Team USA was notified. They basically, the press officer mentioned that it's a FIFA portal that they get. It's a notice that goes to the general secretary of the association. They received it at 10:31 a.m. Eastern time today, which is yesterday technically when we're recording this. So the 5th of July. So you receive it less than a little bit over 24 hours before the match is going to play. Like, I do feel sorry for Belgium because you're preparing as if Balogun's not going to be able to play, and you have to make those quicker
for sure. Yes.
adjustments in a way. So, like, that's the one thing, and I get FIFA is in the right to do what they want, and they could take their time on this kind of stuff. Most of the other disciplinary updates that they've given for some of these matches are released within a day or two of the match. Like, this should have been within 24 hours of the match happening, of saying, hey, we're implementing this rule and such. Balogun is able to play as long as he doesn't do any other egregious offenses like a red card or something where it's immediately, rescinded and he's banned for, 2 games and we might impose higher sanctions. This is, again, as someone who's United States citizen, inherently, yes, there may be some leniencies towards the U.S. on my part, but what I'm saying is that the FIFA should have decided this sooner. It shouldn't have been so
Sure,
dramatic
yes.
within like 24 to 36 hours before the match starts. But I do think they got it right in this case. I don't think there was direct intent. I get that, especially because, like, the one thing that most people aren't talking about in this is Balogun and the defender were trying to go for the ball. They were locked arms. Like, he was trying to get out of the grip of him, and like he was limited in his mobility. Like, where do you want him to step when he's clearly looking at the ball and he's not stepping? He's not intentionally trying to go for an injury. Like, what do you want him to do?
Yeah,
Especially when it's
exactly.
partly the defender's fault that gripped him on. And I know the other case that was given on this was the broken leg for earlier in this tournament. I'm trying to make sure I get the person's name right on this. Cogna's. Like, Cogna's, like, the argument is like, well, if his leg was broken on accident, does that mean we shouldn't? The Qatari player shouldn't be banned for as long as he did. The difference was they gave the Qatari player a yellow card and it was upgraded to a red because of the egregiousness, and then he was put on a 5-match ban. And the difference was the Qatari player had a full absolute opportunity to stop, and not step
Yeah.
on the guy's leg. Balogun didn't really have that because he was gripped by the guy's arm, but it's either here or there. FIFA made their decision. Belgium, I know, is going to try to protest it and go to the court system and everything, which they're in the right to do. I don't know if they're going to get an emergency injunction in time for the match, which, it's end of the day, it's regardless of what happens from this, back to Team USA, Christian Pulisic needs to actually do something here in the round of 16 because the last couple of matches, yes, Balogun's having a breakout tournament. The star that everyone's been regarding to in Christian Pulisic, he needs to step up. He needs to do so much better than he's really kind of had on this lack of showing here in the FIFA World Cup and lack of showing on the international level in 2026. Like, he's actually got to, step it up here, and other players have to step up just in case something happens, but just for the sake of making sure you're more in depth, because especially when you're on the same side of the bracket as France, like, are you really going to be able to fare well when you just rely on Fallow and Balogun? Probably not. But that's all I'm going to say on the matter, because it's a red card and FIFA decided to delay it a little bit. But regardless, great environment in the San Francisco Bay Area. Great match, great win for Team USA, and they move on to the round of 16 in a rematch of that 2014 matchup against Belgium. All right. Well, we gotten through all the matches we had to recap because we've been, on vacation and traveling and doing some other stuff. So time to get into our previews. Only 4 of them this time, Drew, and then we can give ourselves a break before we preview the quarterfinal round when everything finalizes. So let's get started. Portugal and Spain. Here's the thing. I know the last round I said Ronaldo was going to win. He was going to get the game-winning goal. I was wrong on that metric. They still won, but I know there are some things that you just don't predict well. In that case, me. There are only 2 teams left from Group K in Colombia and Portugal. Spain is the only team left in this FIFA World Cup in Group H, and they were the champions. Obviously, Cabo Verde out. Uruguay did not make it past the other side, and Saudi Arabia didn't do that either. I mentioned how I was a little bit concerned about not about Spain on this side. I was concerned about some of the other teams and how they were going to fare going into their next matchups. But I think this is the end of the road for Ronaldo. I think, and especially because he just confirmed this is his last World Cup. I don't think we're going to get Messi Ronaldo in the FIFA World Cup final. I just don't see it. But I think even if Portugal somehow managed to win this, they ain't getting to probably the semifinal. Even if somehow they get there, they ain't getting past France. At least if they face off against them, it's not happening. So I got Spain winning this one. I think the road ends for Ronaldo at the FIFA World Cup level in Dallas. But I don't think it's an egregious blowout. I think it's a 2-0 victory for Spain, and they continue to move on to the quarterfinal round with ease.
Yeah, there's no secret that Portugal hasn't played as well as people thought they would this tournament. Although they are, where they are in the round of 16, I think this is an unfortunate draw. I think Spain is a hot team right now, and they're one of the best teams in the entire tournament for a reason. I do think this will be a little bit of a closer game. I have a 2-1 scoreline in favor of Spain. I think that this will be just one of those games that kind of stays 1-1 for a long time, and then Spain will get that goal in the second half and, really push it at the end of the game to win. I think that this is going to be a sad exit for Cristiano Ronaldo. What all he's done for Portugal and for international football itself is it's incredible. And to see him still performing at 41 and still scoring goals is so cool. I think the storyline for this game is amazing too. That's like the last dance versus the first dance with, Cristiano Ronaldo and Lamine Yamal battling against each other. So yeah, this is going to be a great game. I can't wait to watch. Unfortunately, as much as I'm a big CR7 guy, I'm going to go with the Spain victory 2-1.
I'm sticking with my prediction 2-0, but I would not be surprised if Ronaldo scores the lone goal that you're predicting in this game. I would not be surprised if it's him, but could easily be anyone else in the Portugal squad since it was a little slow for Ronaldo to start out and trying to score goals here in the World Cup. Argentina, Egypt. This one is more interesting. I think this is actually going to be a decent game. I think Mohamed Salah and Lionel Messi on the same pitch, especially indoors in Atlanta, is going to be great. Television to watch. I think these two teams will battle it out, especially with Argentina getting that wake up call. Egypt basically escaping on penalties. Uh, do I want to be bold here and predict an upset? I really don't think this is the time that happens. As much as Egypt is starting to build some momentum, I just think Argentina with that wake-up call, especially against a decent Cabo Verde team, I think that I think this finally silences the media members of the Egyptian media in the press box. I think this finally sends them home, so that way we have no more fanboys or fangirls in the press box. And I think Argentina wins this. I'm going to say 2-1 on the score line. I think it's at least close. I think Mohamed Salah gets the only goal for Egypt. But I think Lionel Messi scores again, continuing to be in the Golden Boot race. Maybe he scores both of them. I don't know. But I think Argentina in a closer one gets it done, and they just punch their ticket on to the semifinals.
Yeah, I think that Argentina will also look to bounce back, even though they won against Cabo Verde. I think they'll look to just play better. And Egypt is a team that I love. I've loved watching them in this World Cup, but they just do not have the talent here against a really, really skilled Argentina team. I actually have this game going 3-1 in Argentina's favor. I do agree with you that Mo Salah will score the lone Egyptian goal. But this is a fortunate draw for Argentina. I feel like they got a pretty favorable matchup here in the round of 16, and so it's gonna be one of those good games. I would love if Egypt would surprise the world, shock the world maybe, but I just don't see it happening here. I have an Argentina 3-1 victory.
By the way, I meant quarterfinals or technically semifinals on the
Yeah, I know
right
what
side
you
of the
meant.
bracket. Yeah, everyone knows what I meant there. But yeah, I think Argentina gets one step closer to the big semifinals on the win there. And yeah, I think we're both in agreement that Salah is probably going to get a goal there or probably the lone goal for Egypt. Who knows? Maybe this ends up going to extra time. Maybe we're well far off on it, which it would be great
Maybe.
to see those two, especially you got Liverpool versus formerly Barcelona. I mean, that'd be nice, especially two guys who were stars for the European respective clubs. But all right, moving along on this, BC Place Vancouver will host Switzerland and Colombia. This one is honestly, it's the harder one to predict of these final games in the round of 16, and solely because I haven't really gotten a finger on the pulse too much of the Switzerland team, and I was in stadium for their opening game against Qatar. I mean, if they get a 1-0 victory against Qatar in the San Francisco Bay Area, then I'd probably be singing their praises a little bit more. But they've shown weakness at times. I mean, they've shown that they won the group narrowly against Canada, but they've shown that they're not really as strengthened of a team as most people have potentially thought they were, especially in years past where the Swiss have always been pretty decent getting into the elimination phase. But I just especially this is the final team that's remaining of Group B. This is their 6th straight World Cup. But like I mentioned, Granit Xhaka really needs to step up and really do better for this Swiss team. And Colombia, I mean, we mentioned how they narrowly escaped Ghana at a tie with Portugal to win the group, and it's not been a Cinderella story for Colombia by any measure, but I think this is one of those times I'm going to invoke the lame excuse of the football gods. I think the football gods want to see Argentina-Colombia collide. I think they really want to see a good matchup between those two in the quarterfinals. So I think Colombia gets business done. I think it's 2-0 on the scoreline, and the Swiss go back to much better weather conditions out in Switzerland, even though they would be fine sticking around in the FIFA World Cup. But I got a 2-0 victory for Colombia.
I think this game is going to be one of the best in terms of competitiveness in the round of 16. I think the round of no, this is the round of 16.
Yeah, it's 16.
So I think this actually goes 1-1, and I actually have this game going PKs. I think that it'll be just a slugfest throughout. I think it'll be so competitive. Both teams, trading shots at each other. I think that Colombia is the better team, and I do have them advancing in PKs for that reason. But Switzerland, I think, has a lot to prove. I think they're, out here to say that Algeria game, wasn't just because they were an inferior opponent. Like we have the talent to compete with some of the top nations, and I think that they'll try to prove that against Colombia. And look to build off of what they've done ever since their first draw with Qatar. But I do have this game going PKs, and I have it going in Colombia's favor. So,
yeah, I just think at the end of the day, it's I don't blame you for going to penalty kicks on this. Probably, what would be the score line going to penalty kicks? You say 1-1?
Yeah, 1-1.
Yeah, it's I can believe that. Maybe Xhaka scores a goal. Maybe it ends up being someone else on this roster. I mean, maybe Colombia gets like a last-second equalizer goal or something. Maybe from Luis Diaz, who manages to rip one in. But penalty kicks would probably be the way that this one has to end. But at the end of the day, at least they get a cool environment, just like this final match we're about to predict, and they don't have to worry about the excess heat. USA, Belgium. 2014, these teams faced off, and Tim Howard had to have the game of his career to keep the United States in it with a final score line of 2-1 in extra time, with a game that could have easily gone to penalty kicks, but the United States, their efforts were just too little too late. This is a Belgium team that still got Lukaku, who is still, when he comes off the bench, he's still amazing. As long as he's not playing a full 90 minutes plus stoppage time, he's incredible. Team USA is the last one in Group D. Belgium is also, I believe they are the last ones in their group. If I can,
I think Egypt.
Or let me make sure I'm looking at this right. Yeah, Group G. It's between Belgium and Egypt. They're the last two in their respective group. I think this is. Look, I don't want to, at risk of seeming blazingly arrogant, especially as someone of United States citizenship. I think the United States gets vengeance in this one. I think they, especially with Balogun being back now. If Balogun's not back in, I'd give you a different story on this. I think the United States doesn't go up early, but maybe towards the end of getting closer to the second half hydration break, they probably take the first lead. I think Lukaku does score at least one goal in this game. I think he managed to score it, especially off of the bench. But I've got the United States, especially because they know the tough task they'll have whenever Lukaku comes off of the bench. I think Balogun will come out with a vengeance. I think Pulisic finally gets a goal here in this elimination round. He hasn't even gotten a goal in this World Cup yet either. So I think Pulisic gets his first goal in this World Cup. I think Balogun gets a goal in the World Cup, and then somebody else from like the middle line. You know what? Let's say Tim Ream. He scores a goal off of a free kick. You know what? Let's give it to the defender captain, Uzuga. I say the United States wins this 3-1, but not before Lukaku cuts the deficit in half where it's 2-1, and then the United States has to get another cushion goal to be able to win. So I think the United States moves on to Los Angeles in the quarterfinal, where if that does happen, it's probably the end of the road for them. Maybe I'll be proven wrong depending on what happens on the other side with Portugal and Spain. But again, not trying to sound blazingly arrogant on this sort of stuff, but I think the United States, in a close matchup down the stretch, gets vengeance against Belgium.
I think that in 2014, Belgium had the likes of Eden Hazard and so many players that really caused Tim Howard and a lot of trouble. That being said, this is not 2014 anymore, and I think that we are a lot better of a team. And I think Belgium's golden age has kind of dwindled a little bit. I do love that we got Balogun back. That's a huge addition. I think that he's so vital for the United States up top, and all of the things that we've been working for lead to this moment. We have so much expectation on us being the host and trying to carry that youth movement, and I think that this is such a way to prove it is by advancing to the quarterfinals. And I think any USA fan would have taken a quarterfinals appearance at the start of this World Cup, and we have the chance to do it against a Belgium team that has struggled in this World Cup. I know they've been good of recent, but they have struggled in this World Cup, and I actually have this game going 2-1 in our favor. Um, I think that it will go 1-0 to us. And I think Belgium will equalize, and I think we'll get the game-winning goal. I actually have Dest scoring. I don't know why. I have them scoring the game-winning goal for us. I hope Pulisic scores. I really do. But as long as he is just involved and creates havoc up there, then I will be pleased. But I would love to see him get on the score sheet in tomorrow's game. But I am going to go with a USA win. I'm going to say it's 2-1 to advance to the quarterfinals to most likely take on Spain. So
Pulisic's got to score a goal, like hands
Yeah.
down. I think if he doesn't score in this game, I don't know if he even gets a chance to score in the quarterfinal. Like
Yeah,
especially
I
with the
agree.
slump he's had here in 2026 at the international level, something's got to give. Something's got to, get a spark in him. Because again, imagine how much of a threat it is if you have between Pulisic and Balogun, but Pulisic just hasn't been a threat really. He's been involved, like you said. He's been making passes and doing some stuff to be in transition, but he just has not. There's a couple of times where he's danced around with the ball in the box and hasn't actually ripped it or taken a one-timer, and it's where you wonder what's going on. But it's that's why we're just talking about it, and neither of us are on the pitch for this one, right? But well, long episode, but we got through it, and the good news is we'll be able to recap the other 4 matches in the round of 16 and then preview the full-on quarterfinal round once we, get closer on these things. But should be fun on these next couple of days, watching these other 4 matches unfold and seeing how the rest of this FIFA World Cup plays out. Man, we got some good matches on the slate for the next 2 days, though. So
Absolutely. It's going to be fun.
oh yeah, should be a lot of fun. That's going to conclude this episode of the NSMA 2026 FIFA World Cup podcast. Be sure to click the link in the description to see how you could support the podcast as we continue along in this journey. For Drew Williamson, special thanks to ETN and T-Bull for joining us on the podcast, all the hardworking men and women that make this run so smoothly. I'm Spencer Thompson saying so long for various parts of the United States. Round of 16 is concluding with 4 more matches as we head along into the quarterfinals for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. Hey there, thank you so much for listening or watching the NSMA 2026 FIFA World Cup podcast. A special thank you to our Platinum Insiders, the Banzet family, Robert Eggleston and Jason Edmonds, for their support of the podcast. If you'd like to support the podcast and my journey to the 2026 FIFA World Cup, the link is in the description. Not only are all donations potentially tax deductible, as the NSMA is a 501c3 nonprofit, but you also can get your name here on this graphic in the description, and you can get some exclusive behind-the-scenes content. Appreciate those of you who have donated so far, those who are going to donate, and hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast during the 2026 FIFA World Cup.